Meeting that happened on October 12th, and our special council meeting on October 20th. And I believe we could probably do those together.
Mayor, I move approval of the minutes from October 12 and October 20, 2020.
Second.
And a second by Tom. I just want to make note that there was one correction to the minutes of October 12th. I was actually on Zoom, not in person. And so Tony made that adjustment. And other than that, just a typo. So I don't know if we need to specify with that correction.
It's okay to do person made the motion.
Okay, so with that correction, Tom, you're right with that correction. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sorry, I didn't wait there for Jen. But the motion carries.
She gave a thumbs up.
I always have to pause. Okay, and then next, our approval of monthly expenditures via roll call vote. Tony?
Mayor, I move approval of the monthly expenditures as reviewed.
Second. Motion by Karen, second by Mary McGrath.
Laura Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Karen Novacek,
Yes.
Tom Nemes,
Yes.
Mary McGrath,
Yes.
Jen Mazias,
yes,
Carl Broberg,
Yes.
Dave Anderson,
Yes.
And that motion carries. Next up is public comment. Is there anyone here this evening or online that would like to address the council? Please go ahead and step forward if you would. Or raise your hand on Zoom.
there is one other person, and all it says is that they're connecting to audio, so I don't think they're tied in, logged in right now.
Okay, either of you gentlemen here would like to say anything? Jerry?
We're good.
No, you're good, okay.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing no public comment, we will move on to mayoral announcements, proclamations, appointments. I'd like to start out by reminding everyone to please be vigilant. And I see everyone here is wearing a mask, and that is very much appreciated. And you know, boy, we just need to be careful. The numbers are just continuing to explode up here. We have been lucky up till recently and kept things under control, but, you know, we're just continuing to see those numbers kind of blow up a little bit. So everyone, and I urge everyone, don't go places that you don't need to go unless it's outside to get fresh air and, you know, but, you know, unnecessary trips to places where you're just going to be exposed to germs and exposing people. That is my request for all of us to try to be safe. I would like to welcome two of our Public Works employees who are here this evening, and especially Jerry, who has survived his first week in Washburn, our new Public Works Director. So thank you for making the trek up here. We're glad to have you on board. And Joel, always glad to have you on board as well. And thanks for sticking with us. I just wanted to mention, if you don't already follow the city's Facebook page, I want to make sure that everyone knows about that and does pay attention to that, because there is great information that gets shared on there. Currently, there's a post about a housing survey that's going to be coming out. I really encourage everyone to please take the time to fill out that survey. We are looking as a region to work together to try to address the housing shortage and needs that we have up here. And we have been chosen to be part of a pilot program where we actually might get to take action sooner than later. And so all the information that we can collect, the better. So please encourage people, tell people about the survey, to look for it. I believe it's coming in the mail, and fill that out and get a return. Also, it's the 101st anniversary of Memorial Park I saw on there, which is kind of cool. And if you have seen the stone marker as you come into the park, you know, just remember that was a DuPont. I can't remember the name of the club. Do you remember what the name of the club was?
The DuPont Patriotic Association?
Yes, the DuPont Patriotic Association donated that 10 acres. So just marking that anniversary. What a nice park we have there. Also, we had a successful election, the 5th of the year. Great job, staff, and all the poll workers who helped make that a smooth process as usual. Kind of tied into that and the other announcement, you know, the city hall is closed right now except for by appointment. Staff are here and working, but we are just trying to make sure that everyone stays healthy, and we can conduct whatever business we need to by appointment, over the phone, email, those sorts of things. We have very few staff, so if somebody does end up having to, you know, quarantine, it really puts City Hall in a bind, and, you know, there's limited people who can do the things that need to be done. So please understand that we are here working hard for you, and we continue to be here, but please understand that the doors are locked, so do get a hold of us ahead of time, the staff here, if you need to come in for any reason. And then one last thing, we did have a food distribution here. It was the first time we've done this, and it was a COVID-related thing where the food was made available to families throughout Northwest Wisconsin through this second harvest. And we partnered with Core Community Resources and the county to make this happen. Unfortunately, the truck was 2 hours late, and we had lines of people waiting to pick up the food for hours. And everyone was just so wonderful and patient. A lot of people did stick around, and so 632 households were served. And I think that it was well received, and there is a plan in the works for another one. If people ask you, it looks like December 2nd might be another food distribution, barring unforeseen circumstances, so I'm gonna check in with staff. Some of our police department staff ended up working longer than anticipated with traffic control because of that extended situation. Hopefully it will go smoother this time. They're working with a different company for the delivery. And so that's another opportunity anyway for food distribution for folks in our area, just to help with those needs. And yes,
Would it be at the same location?
yes, it's scheduled to be at the same location. And actually, they're gonna split it up because we did have leftovers. And they're gonna do the first half in Iron River in the morning, I think, and then come here in the afternoon. So I think they're gonna try to cover a bigger area in this immediate region. So that it'll be at the community center in Iron River and then here at the county garage in Washburn. There may even be a third one on December 30th, so they're looking into that as well. So stay tuned on all that. And then I still have a vacancy on the Harbor Commission, or we do, I should say. And there is a reappointment request for the Washburn Housing Authority. And that is Thomas Middlestat, whose term has expired. He remains to be a resident. And I would like to reappoint him for another 5-year term.
Mayor, I would make a motion that Thomas Middlestat be reappointed for another 5-year term to the Washburn Housing Authority.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dave? Any questions or discussion on that appointment?
Has there been interest by anyone in the community? Is this, I'm clear on what they have.
Laura, the Housing Authority, the vacancy or the position that Tom has had on the board has to be filled by a resident of one of the Housing Authority projects. And I don't know if there are other residents that have talked about being interested, but I know Tom is still interested in serving.
And I have not heard from anyone else who is a resident. I don't know that you have either here at City Hall, so. With that said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tom, for your service on that committee. Next item is discussion and action on conditional use application for a tourist rooming house at 20202 Harbor View Drive, Bayfield Properties LLC petitioner. And just to clarify, this, I was not at the meeting where this went to the Plan Commission, but my understanding is that only one of those addresses will be used for the rental. They're just not sure which one yet, so they're applying for both addresses. Dave, did you have anything you wanted to add on this? Nothing special from the Plan Commission? It passed unanimously at the Plan Commission. And so then,
Are those units covered by an HOA?
I think they are.
There's nothing in the HOA declarations and covenants that prohibits this,
that would be up to them, I guess, to check on that. Getting permission from the city is, I think, irrespective of that, correct? Yeah, so that's on them to get that permission before they would rent it out.
It wasn't something that we discussed. It wouldn't fall under jurisdiction, I don't think.
Good reminder for,
right? Having been the president of an HOA for 8 years. other creating legal problems. Because they just go on forever.
And that wouldn't be a bad thing to put in the wording of a motion, perhaps?
Yeah, and the other is if we approve the document as it was presented, then both of the units are available, and there's nothing to prevent them from using both units. So, I'm not opposed to it as long as there's no issues that, that we didn't create an issue for the other homeowners.
Well, yeah, no one was here to speak up on it.
Yeah, and then, it would seem to me that we would want to state that one of those two units, not both.
In the day, it was prohibited. We went through that a number of years ago.
What's that?
It was prohibited
What was
at one time to have any kind of rental of any kind in those units, other than the owners. Try to tell.
How come the city?
No, no, no.
City did, the HOA did,
Oh,
yeah, not the city. I'm not close to it either, but that was my question.
Yeah.
So I think it would be important to clarify those two things. I think that's a good point, both of those, Carl. If anyone will be making a motion to make sure that we specify one of those two properties, and if it is consistent with the agreement.
Hey, everybody. I
Yeah,
just want to know if this is how it's being recorded, or if this is how, I'm not exactly sure how this is going out to the public, but like that whole last conversation from Carl, I could not hear. I can hear Mary when she speaks into her microphone just fine, but I can piece together some stuff, but like if somebody went back and tried to hear this recording, they would not hear the exchange or what Carl just said for the past 2 minutes.
okay. Do me a favor, can you just move your paper over and scooch your microphone up closer to you? Because you can get it right up there, and then when you talk into the mic, you can hear it. You can hear it yourself when you talk into the mic and it's coming through well. And Mary, maybe you could do the same thing.
A little closer, a little closer, Carl. You can do it.
That's pretty good. That's way better. Okay, Carl.
I'm gonna choke on the mic for a
Yeah,
second.
right? Okay. So thank you, Jen, for that reminder. Is there a motion on this item?
I would make a motion to accept the idea of the tourist rooming house as presented with the, understanding that it would be unit, 200 or 202, and that, it moves forward because it will be approved by the HOA, what do they call it?
Yeah, homeowners association.
Okay. Upon approval by them.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion is to approve 200 or 202 as a rental with the provision that it is approved by the homeowners association. And that was a motion by Mary McGrath, seconded by Dave. Are there any other questions or comments on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is discussion and action on proposed contract with the Sakota Company Incorporated for ambulance billing services. This is something that is necessary since we had Kay retire, and that is a big part of what she did here is the ambulance billing services. We are filling in with this contract to get that work done. It's a very complicated process, and these contractors are very familiar with the process, and hopefully will be a good solution for us. Scott, do you have anything to add?
Nothing other than what I've already stated.
Yes, they were reviewed, interviewed along with another contractor, and this is the choice by that subcommittee. Would anyone like to make a motion on this?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Mary McGrath to approve the proposed contract. Second by Karen. Any other questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Just so I understand, Scott, at one time, we've been talking about this for a while. Just so I understand the funding piece, I was under the impression that a lot of Kay's, funding and how we could have that position came from her doing this work. So in the future, if we rehire that position, are we gonna have to find that funding from somewhere else? And I'm not concerned about it, because I know this is necessary and we might actually do, we've been talking about this for a while. I guess I just wanted to see if I remembered that correctly or not.
So the answer to the question is, will we still have funding? Yes, we will still have funding. We're just going to have about 7.5% of our ambulance revenue, which is going to be going to this company instead. So with the reduction of the position, we'll have this expense, and hopefully we'll have some better timing and so forth with this contract that will. We're hopeful, and once we get into it and are able to work out a few initial bugs and so forth, we'd like to see an increase in revenue as we go forward. So we'll be monitoring that as part of the process as well. So, so in answer to your question, we're not going to necessarily lose any of the funding as opposed to just paying the position, though. We'll have to pay a portion of the revenue we collect to the contract. So
just a different source for funding those fees.
correct.
Does that help, Jen?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I understood some of our previous conversations. So yeah, I'm ready, thanks.
Very good. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Very good. Now, next item is a public hearing with discussion and action on the 2020 municipal tax levy. And I would entertain a motion to go into that public hearing.
I so move that we go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Mary McGrath, to go into the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We are officially in our public hearing. Yeah. I am jumping to tab 4. Are we just asking if there's any public input at this point, and then we go out of the public hearing? Okay.
Correct.
Would anyone like to give testimony or ask questions as part of our public hearing on the budget levy for 2020, payable in 2021? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to go out of the public hearing.
I move we go out of public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Mary McGrath, to leave the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So now we attack the general fund first. Or do we look at all three? Just hang on to the microphone.
Okay, so my suggestion at this point is that you want to look at any additional adjustments in the general fund, debt service, and capital budgets. In the memo that I included in the packet, you'll note that the Finance Committee had met and did discuss an issue. We did get information related to our expenditure restraint limit. And to explain that simply, the state limits us as to how much we can spend, and if we go over that limit, we will lose that aid in the next year. So the way I calculate this out is we have to reduce our budget by some $28,000, or we're going to lose about $35,000, between $30,000 and $35,000 in state aid in our 2022 budget. So this was outlined at the Finance Committee, and I can let the Finance Committee talk a little bit more about that too, where we discussed a number of options. One, there is, we don't care and we're going to do what we want anyway, and we will lose the state aid. That option wasn't very popular. Two, we need to look at making some reductions within those existing budgets to come under that limit. And then I had one other option in there. And so we had looked at that, and it was some of the other line items or some of the capital projects or whatnot, or we look at the reduction of a position. So what the recommendation before you is the city loses a half a position going into next year. Now, we've not decided which position that is going to be at this time. We currently have a vacant position, and for the time being, what we would do is reduce that vacant position by in half. However, it will be my recommendation that we take a strong look at the overall staffing of the city and decide what is going to be best for the long term, and take a look at the positions that we have and how we may wish to restructure. So that may mean that the position at City Hall is the one that is reduced, but it may mean that there's a position in one of the other departments that ends up being reduced. So that is going to need a little further analysis, but for the time being, in order to get through the budget process, that recommendation is that we would cut that in half. And one of the other options that we had talked about too is you also later on the agenda have the salary and wage adjustments for 2021. We had discussed that as well. The recommendation is a 2% increase for most positions. However, if you don't approve that, you're still not going to make up all of that. You would still have to come with other reductions as well. So that's the basic summary, and I don't know if any of the Personnel Finance Committee members have anything to add on that.
Yeah. I think Scott has summarized completely the options that we looked at and the discussion that we had. We spent a considerable amount of time going back and forth trying to figure out what would be the best alternative. And I think as Scott is indicating, it's to take a full-time position and temporarily put it as half-time as a placeholder, really, until we can, and staff can look at the entire staffing process and the best way to accomplish the savings and the best way to accomplish the work. So I think after our lengthy discussion, we unanimously agreed that this was the preferred option to go forward to take the full-time position that has been here at City Hall and make it half-time, understanding that that may change in the future.
That sounds good. And it sounds like we're lucky to be in the position where we have that flexibility right now, and the work will be able, some of the work at least will be able to be continued on with a different funding source. And it does seem to be the most desirable option of those three. Would you recommend we do a motion on each of the different budgets? Does anyone, go ahead.
You don't need to do a motion on the individual budgets at this time, but this is
The overall levy.
this is the overall, you have the resolution that you will need to approve on the tax levy.
Okay.
But if anyone wants to consider any other potential changes to the budget at this time, now is the time to do it, because when we come back next month, you're just gonna have the final listing. Here's everything to be formally approved, and we don't like making changes at that hour.
I have gone through every line, and I've asked Scott multiple questions. The budget is a complex thing, and I don't know, maybe that's why no one from the public is here to talk about it, because it's a lot to try to wrap your head around, and I'm really impressed with the fact that we have been able to meet that spending limit over the past number of years. I think, to me, I've asked my questions. I don't have any recommendations for changes. I have, one of the questions that I had, it's not a major line item by any means, but I was asking Scott about the cable boxes, you know, at the campground, if that expense is going up. And then, you know, is there a way, an alternate way to do that, or is that the best way to do it? And I think just leaving it the way that it is probably sounds like the best way to go forward with that for now, although in the future, potentially, we could look at, you know, wiring it for, I don't know. We'll have to see what 5G does or something. But for now, yeah.
Is the cable connections an amenity that's sought after?
Highly sought after.
Yes. We have RVs that have 3 TVs. So, I mean, that's typically going to be the seasonal camper, someone who is there for the entire summer. This year, we only distributed the boxes to the seasonal campers or to those who are going to be there for an extended period of time. In the past, it's been the weekend camper or the weekend or the week-long camper as well. But due to COVID, we didn't do that this year. Those are things that we will consider making some of those changes permanently going forward. Have ongoing conversations with the cable provider as to other options. Someday, if technology improves, we don't need these boxes because they're quite honestly a pain.
It's already improved. That's why I'm kind of surprised that this is a thing. I can stream everything I need on this right here. I don't understand why.
Eventually, that will cause an issue with our bandwidth as well, and so we may have to look at something different there.
Unless they're using data, yeah. And a lot of people are getting unlimited data now. So eventually, yeah, things are gonna change.
Right.
Just to comment from the Finance Committee, we too have looked at the budget item by item, and I believe I am, and hopefully the other two members are also in agreement with you that it's a very tight budget. We looked at the possibility of shifting here or reducing here, and I think the budget as presented is a good one. You know, we would like to be able to do more, but it is where we are now, given our revenue streams. And I would urge that, if you're ready for a motion, are you ready for a motion? Sure, okay. I would move that resolution, that we approve of resolution 20-013, adopting the 2020 municipal tax levy for the city of Washburn.
Second.
There was a motion by Karen and a second by Mary McGrath. We certainly can take some time if others have questions or suggestions.
The room tax, is that, do we have a projected year end? Are we ahead of schedule on that? Or
The number there was from 2019. I don't know if we have a third quarter yet, probably not. Oh, just. Do we have a number on that? Or, I mean, I guess the question is it ahead of what we anticipated?
I don't have that off the top of my head, I would have to look that up.
Sure.
I mean, I have a number as to where we have the financials done through the end of September, but I'd have to go back and look at that. Because I don't do the year-end projections because it's not gonna work with our system very well, so.
And we're looking at next year, obviously.
right, I was just curious, that, you know, because the 2021 budget's at 45. If we're ahead, you know, 2019 is 52, you know, that's $3,000.
You could actually split, just to be on the safe side, be right in the middle, and that's probably what 2020 is going to be. And it's not as dire, like we thought campgrounds would be, and the tax is also unexpected.
And the thing about,
Reasonable.
excuse me, the thing about the room tax is that the city only gets a very small portion of those dollars.
Yeah.
You know, we contract with, well, the room tax commission, or we give that money to the room tax commission, who contracts with the chamber as the tourism entity, according to state statute. So, a very small percentage of that is coming to the city.
10, 5 or 10%.
It's 10% in total. 5% has to go towards Bayfield Street beautification, which we had built up the facade loan program over several years. So that's where most of that had gone in the past. And then 5% administrative costs. So you're only talking $2,500 basically.
Just curious.
Any other comments, questions?
I guess I would just comment because this is something I've had conversations about before I joined the finance committee, and we did get through this and try to look at different variations of what could change, and ideally, in the end, we want to make sure that staff is supported as much as is needed. This is the best way to handle needing to reduce expenditures now, but ultimately, there might be other small things, and I would love to have conversations with anybody that wants to go over the budget in detail to come up with new ideas, but I've heard this phrase before, nickel and dime, pulling things out, and it doesn't hurt to do that. Things could be combed through. It takes a while, but sometimes it just takes them new eyes. No idea, so. So, there's a lot there. That's all.
There certainly is. Any other comments or discussion? Otherwise, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Nice job on that. Everyone for the time that was put in. I think Scott gets the biggest headache from.
Thank you, Scott.
And our next item is discussion and action on the 2021 water and sewer utility budget. Oh, sorry, did I miss
We
it?
have the levy for the library.
Oh, right. Right, that's a separate resolution.
Just to get it on the table, Mayor, I would move that we approval of resolution 20-014, the county library levy exemption.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Mary McGrath. This was something that was new to me, and it sounds like because we pay more than the county does for the library, we are exempt from this, and so we're exercising our right to exempt ourselves. Does that summarize it, Scott?
Essentially, those communities that have libraries are required to put at least 70% of the funding into that library. And so with that, we are exempting ourselves from being taxed by the county for libraries. So only those communities that do not have libraries are taxed for that. And that's how the county comes up with their contribution, basically, towards libraries within the county.
Very good. And I think a somewhat related concept here is, I don't know if people realize that when you order books, if they are picked up here at this library, that helps our funding. If you order books from, if you live in Bayfield County and you pick up books from the Vaughan Library in Ashland, Bayfield County actually has to pay Ashland County a percentage of fee for that service. And so the more that we can encourage people to take books out of our own library and order them to come here, the better. So that's just my plug there. Is there any other question or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then we're on to the discussion and action on the 2021 water and sewer utility budgets. I'm going to flip here to tab 5. And does anyone have anything that they'd like to present on this at all? Joel, do you have anything to say about this?
I'm here if anybody has any questions.
Okay, perfect, thank
Answer.
you. Appreciate it. So it looks like the water rates were increased in 2015 to help keep the water utility current, and, you know, due to the fact that we're in a pandemic, we're looking at not increasing the utility rates, but still looks like we have a decent budget to work with. And I would entertain a motion to approve this unless anyone has something else in mind.
I move approval of the 2021 water utility budget.
Second.
Motion by Karen and a second by Mary McGrath. Did anyone have any questions on this budget? Or comments?
If I could make a few comments on
Please.
this. So we do have Joel here who, of course, is the operator in charge at the treatment plant and is the water utility as well. So I did ask him to attend, even if it's to just give you a little update on a few of the things that have been going on down there. I would say that the utility staff is continuing to do an outstanding job at updating maintenance at the plants, trying to operate as efficiently as possible. They have implemented a lot of the inside, doing the testing themselves, so we're not sending out a lot of the tests and costs, contracting that out basically. So it's an ongoing thing. Of course, we're in the middle of the meter changeout project right now, and we're hoping that's going to have some significant benefits for us as well. So they have been working very hard. This is a difficult budget just because both utilities are burdened with an extreme amount of debt. About 60% of both the utilities, it goes to paying, the revenue we bring in goes to paying off debt. So there's not a lot of extra money. It's difficult to, and those who have been on the council know that the general fund has had to bail out the utilities, particularly the sewer utility. Water is regulated by the PSC, so they make sure that we're bringing in enough. But the general fund has had to bail out the sewer utilities, so that has caused a lot of issues. That's why we don't have a lot of money for other things either. And we are left, and I sound like a broken record, it's with the general fund too. The only way out of this hole is with taxable development and with new utility customers. The system was built, designed, and paid for to have a lot more users, and we don't have those users. So that has been, in the past, the impetus for the council to take actions to get more residential development and more commercial development within the city. So once again, we are in this issue because we need more customers and we need more development. If that is not the direction the council wants to go, you're going to have to come up with some other options here, and I quite frankly don't know what those are.
What's the number? It's built for so many more than.
And I will ask, we're currently operating about 2/3 of our capacity. Is that correct, Joel?
Yeah, I would say 2/3. Plant was built to handle average flows of, look back on my DMR or my permit report. I want to say 360,000 gallons. Right now, we're averaging about 220. So do the math. I could do it, but I don't have a calculator for me. So that gives you an idea where we're at. And the water utility, obviously, too, we can handle all the capacity there also. And yeah, Scott makes a good point. It's, and actually, how many new homes have we got in this year? More than I've seen in the little over 3 years I've been here, so that's good. So there has been a little bit of uptick in residential. And hopefully that stays. Because it's, it's kind of like when I was preaching the meter project to you all, I said, this is the utilities cash register, and, the utility customers they're the ones paying on that register, so.
Well, thank you for your work. Taking on that internal testing, I think, has been a huge benefit. So thank you.
Well, yeah, it helps, very little bit helps. So we're gonna keep doing what we can. I don't know if you guys got word too. I'm also doing a pilot project with Wisconsin State Lab of Hygiene. Actually, we're about a month into it or so. We're doing COVID testing
Oh, yes.
on the sewage here. So
Do you have any results back yet?
nothing yet. I'll keep you all informed on that. So.
That'll be very interesting.
And it's supposed to be something to do with density testing. So they're looking at certain municipalities and seeing. They can detect COVID in wastewater, and then hopefully use it as kind of a, hey, this place is at high risk, or, whatever.
Very interesting. All right. Karen?
I would like to amend my motion, because I said water utility, but I think we could probably look at both budgets, the water utility and the sewer utility, in one motion. And as Scott has recommended in the cover memo, also with the authorization to proceed with the Public Service Commission application for a rate increase in the water rate if eligible. We can't do it unless we meet the criteria to be eligible, so that's not a blank check. But I would like to amend the motion or change the motion to reflect both budgets with the authorization to proceed to PSC with an application for a rate increase if eligible.
Which doesn't mean we would have to do it, it would just allow us to do it if we chose.
Correct.
Okay. Scott?
So what that rate increase would be an inflationary increase only, so it would be a maximum of 3%. So if we apply, that is what it would be calculated at.
And at some point, we will need to do that in order to avoid a big jump in the future.
We have applied every year for this, so this is a standard procedure for us,
Okay,
but we have not been eligible since 2015.
okay. Very good. So, your motion, Karen, is amended now to approve the 2021 water and sewer utility budgets and apply for the eligibility. And Mary, are
I
you?
will second that.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments, discussion?
Joel, what do you wish we would all ask you?
Well, it's all good, you know, if I had an open checkbook, it'd be a lot better, but that's never been the case anywhere I work, so. But, you know, the meter project's really taken off, I'd say we got about 20% of the meters in, you know, so we're plugging away. They're already doing their job, we've already detected about 2 or 3 leaks that people had, because they do alarm. If the meter never stops, it lets us know. If there's a burst in the pipe, it lets us know. If the ambient temperature gets too low, it's gonna let us know. So, I mean, not only is this a benefit to the city, it's a benefit to our customers.
Very good.
Have you seen an increase in usage?
Pardon?
Have you seen an increase in water usage this year?
We don't have enough in place yet to really get into that, you know, tell on that yet, but.
Yeah, you mentioned gallons when I asked that question about,
Can you,
when, I'm curious if, how many houses, you said there have been new houses built, and how much difference that makes in water usage. I'm curious, do you have numbers and how many houses you think need to be, how many residents need to be here? I don't know what the average is per
Right.
resident for consumption.
Put it this, the average, person, average now, is about 80 to 100 gallons per person. So if you got an average household of, let's say 4, you kind of do the math, anywhere from roughly 400 gallons per day. Then you figure that out over a year, and yeah. So I would have to, you know, figure about, what is it about every quarter, average residential home pays, or uses for water, I should say.
Well, to kind of extrapolate that out, 1,800 to 2,000 gallons per person per month. So one person in a quarter is going to be around 550 to 6,000 gallons. So if you have a larger family, obviously, but there could be a little bit of efficiency, I suppose, there as well. So you got to kind of factor that in. But that's, so we would have to run some mathematical scenarios for that. As far as the question of if you're looking for, has there been an increase in usage this year? When I did the revenues for the utilities, I based that off of exactly 1 year of actual. So from last October 1st, from October 1st of 2019 through September 30th of this year. And so you will see that residential usage has increased, but the commercial and public authority usage decreased. Overall, it was a slight decrease. So our revenue is currently down. Now, will that rebound? Hopefully. So there's going to be several variables here that we're going to be monitoring over the next year. With the new meters, we hope that our water loss, right now we've got about 25% of the water that goes through the system is not billed, it's lost due to leaks. So we need that number to come down, because if you go over 25%, which is one of the reasons why we did this project, then we're required to take some steps to reduce that. And then when you have more water loss, your wells are pumping more than they need to, so that's more wear and tear and electricity use on your wells, so you want that to come down. And with the meters slow down over time, so with these new meters, they're much more efficient. So we are billing for some of that water that has slipped on by over time. So there's that factor as well. So when all this kind of shakes out, we'll certainly be looking at a lot of those statistics.
I'm trying to see if there's an easy, if we have about 2,000 residents and we're at about 200,000 gallons, I don't know if it's a 1-to-1, but maybe we have room for 1,000 more people if we have 300 and some thousand gallons to use.
I'm figuring theoretically.
Theoretically, I don't know.
Yeah, and you gotta figure into, you do get some I&I inflow and infiltration in the wastewater plant, and things like that. We can start knocking that down, this Bayfield Street project, hopefully. That's some old sewer lines. We got old brick manholes out there, hopefully cut down some I&I, we can bring down that portion of water that's getting into the system, and that's more residential people.
Sure, we have plenty of room to grow. Now we just need the prices of construction to come down so we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I don't wanna kick a sleeping tiger, so to speak, but Laura had made a comment about how many more houses we would need. And is it not true we already have the houses we need? It's just a third of them are not connected to the system.
Maybe referring that to residents using now, but
So we had,
Part of it.
that would be part of it. And we had done this study about 8 years ago, where we analyzed what would it be if we had a bulk of those houses, basically about 40 units on the system. And that at that particular time, the financial status of the utilities was a lot worse than it is today. But that got it, that basically solved half of the problem. So it would certainly help to have another 40 customers on the system, and the system would certainly be able to handle that. And we could handle more than that. Anything is better than nothing, but it is true. We are, when you look at other communities, we are an oddity in that most communities are much more concentrated. We are very spread out with 4 square miles, and so we do have a lot of our residents who are not connected to the system. Most communities have everyone within their community connected, and then use the annexation route in order to anyone who wants to be part of the community add-on, you have to require to connect as well. So, but we're kind of in the opposite boat there. Annexation is probably the last thing that we're looking to consider. So,
Mary, go ahead.
Sort of where your thought process, I think, is not only to pick up the customers that are not presently on, but if we did pick them up, that would enable all of that territory that has not been developed yet to now be available for water and sewer. So it's not only, say, the 40 people, it actually expands property available for development if we were to. So it's really two big things that run parallel, one depends on the other.
That'd be that whole hill, right?
Well, so,
essentially.
not to belabor the point, but could you, and I know we're gonna get into this when we talk about revenues, starting in the new year, but when someone wants to build a home on the hill where they're not connected, how does that work? If they want to be connected and they're at the end of the road, would everyone else have to also get connected?
Yeah.
Is that why that's
Okay,
a hang up?
yes, so I will explain that situation. And we have a lot of that occurring right now. Back in 2005, 6, when the last major water and sewer project was done, there were some locations where mains were extended. And there are people who are paying special assessments yet for that extension. But some of those, they had the option of doing 40-year special assessments or 7-year special assessments, or paying it off all at once. So we still have a lot of those 40-year special assessments still out there. And so that's one of the issues. Whenever a property sells, we have to check and verify, because at that point, then that has to be paid off, and then they will be given a notice that they are required to connect. So we've had a couple of those situations happening over the past several years. Because if somebody new comes in and we have rules, it's actually in 3 different places within our ordinances, because it's such an important issue, and because we are obligated with the federal funding that we received for that project to require people to connect, because the USDA, which, and as a quick side note, I have to send them this budget. I sent it to them for them to review, but they have not come back yet, but I don't anticipate problems. They want us to get out of this situation. They want us to connect people to the utilities. And so our policies are put in place that if you're in platted areas, if the water and sewer lines are within that platted block and you're not connected, you are then required to connect. If somebody new builds and they're within that distance, we have to extend. We will special assess that to the neighboring properties. And that has caused quite a few issues. That's why a lot of properties also don't develop, because nobody wants to pay that cost, because it's very expensive to just extend water and sewer for a block. And so that's a double-edged sword. Those other individuals have to connect once that special assessment is paid off, or the property sells, or it's transferred, or the property is divided. So that's another reason why whenever I'm doing the survey maps and checking all that stuff, that all has to be looked at. So it's a complex issue, and there's kind of this Maginot line that goes through the city where nobody wants to really develop in that area, because if you do, we have to extend the water and sewer line, and as soon as we do that, you can get that leapfrog effect. Now, once it's extended, there's a whole other set of people that fall within that radius, and so they don't necessarily like that. Right, and there's been a lot of people who have been interested in certain properties, but because of the costs and because they don't want to irritate the neighbors, they have chosen not to develop. But we're obligated to have these rules in place to make sure that all these loans that we have the adequate revenue to be paid off, and that was part of the requirement in getting the grant and the loans from the federal government.
Okay. Thank you. Good lesson for the night. I appreciate you taking the time to explain that. I'm sure we'll hit this topic again eventually. But for now, are there any other questions, comments, or discussion on the budget before us? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve the budget. Both budgets, the water and sewer, and apply for our eligibility rate increase, for the rate increase. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next, discussion and action on agreement with Washburn Professional Police Association Local 210 contract. We have 6. So we went through the process and met with the police association. I say we, I attended, but I wasn't part of, the committee. I think we had some good discussion. There were some questions asked, things got hashed out. It's an interesting process where you get together and then bring up your things, and then you go off into your individual rooms to talk about it and then come back again. There were a few changes to the contract recommended, and I think some good solutions were attained to address those. Along with that, the wages were looked at, and you have that comparison in your packet. So you see that the challenge is making sure that we can stay competitive with other communities in our area even, so that we don't lose good officers to, a better salary elsewhere. And that's, I think we are lucky to have officers who do it, I think enjoy working here, and they have been patient with the fact that we can only, offer so much. And so the committee is suggesting the 2% increase for 1 year at least, with the following 2 years of the contract to be negotiated in the future, once we see where the budget is at this time next year. Karen?
Well, I found it fascinating. I had never negotiated a labor contract before, and as the mayor has outlined, they present, and then we go and caucus and come back, and it was fascinating. I will indicate, just also say that the police chief participated also, giving us some background information on some of the recommended language changes in the contract, and that was extremely helpful. As the mayor has indicated, I'm moving from the current rate to $24.59 still puts our officers behind Bayfield and Iron River, and we need to focus on that in upcoming years. There's no question about it. We have a good force, and again, as the mayor's indicated, because it's a good force, I think we've been fortunate in being able to retain our officers. But again, this is a wage for just this upcoming year. It's a 3-year contract, so we will have to go back in and negotiate with the union again. But I would recommend strongly approving this contract. I think the provisions, the changes that have been made are good for our officers. I wish we could do more, but it's a 2% increase.
And I'll just add real quick that clothing and equipment allowance does help. The way that it was adjusted to make it more flexible for them, I think will help a little bit with some of the things that they have wanted to purchase but have been unable to in the past.
All right, second that motion?
Was that a motion?
I recommend it, but I will make a motion that we approve the 3-year contract with the wages set for the year 2021 and the 4 changes as outlined in the cover memo for recommended approval.
And that's a second from Mary?
Correct.
Are there any other comments, questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. to work on that. That was a really interesting process. Next item, discussion and action on 2021 pay schedule for non-represented employees, and that is tab 7 of your packet. So the only represented employees are the police, and not all of them. The police chief and assistant are not represented as well, correct?
That is correct. However, they have always historically followed what the represented police employees get.
Okay, thank you for that background. Karen?
From the Finance Committee, this again was a long discussion in terms of trying to come up with a good recommendation for our staff. Again, we piggybacked it really on what we had already determined was a good plan for our police officers. We felt that if we were making a recommendation of 2% for our police officers, we needed to make a similar recommendation for the remaining staff, the city staff. Again, our pay rates are low for comparable communities in the area. So this isn't a windfall, but it hopefully does send a message that we value our employees. We're doing the best we can, and I would move that we have a 2% increase in the year 2021 for all city employees.
Or most. Is it
Or most, I guess is the word.
If I may suggest, unless you wish to discuss further in closed session, the pay schedule as presented.
That's fine.
Motion to approve as presented.
Yes.
And that was the second, Marion?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion on this? Does anyone have any questions? Comments?
I guess I would just add, this is Laura, I would just add that reviewing salaries and pay schedules and similar communities, it does seem to be across the board that our employees are paid less than most other communities that are comparable. And so even if it is tight on a budget and we're trying to find money elsewhere, this is the only way we can say thank you, and is by sticking to a 2% increase. And other than that, I would just recommend when you interact with an employee of the city, thank them and be gracious, be kind, and make them glad they're here.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And with that, I believe we do not need to go into closed session. And our business is complete. And we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
If you wanted to, Tom, that you would